Hi there everyone, my name is Jenna Calhoun and today I'm going to talk to you about communication accommodation theory out of chapter 9. Communication accommodation theory is an interpersonal communication perspective that examines processes by which an individual adapts their communication behavior towards others or accommodates them and the consequences of accommodation on subsequent communication. The theory is guided by the insight that communicators sometimes adapt their behaviors towards others, as when a speaker slows down when talking to an elderly person or maybe talks louder to an elderly person thinking that they can't hear as well, for example. So I've experienced communication accommodation theory in my life as a waitress at Red Robin. I'm constantly communicating with customers, my fellow employees, and my bosses. And living in San Antonio and working in San Antonio provides me with a very diverse population that includes different languages such as Spanish that I encounter on a daily basis. And when I have a customer that doesn't speak fluent English, the communication between the customer and I can become difficult, and I have to find ways to successfully communicate with them to ensure that their order of their food and their drinks and everything that they want is right, and to ensure that I don't make mistakes. I take part in communication accommodation theory when I try to speak the little bit of Spanish that I do know, just to make them more comfortable and make the experience more enjoyable so they don't have to worry about the language barrier, and just so they overall can have a great experience. And I've noticed that when I serve someone that is not fluent in English, I tend to have more facial expressions and smile more than speaking. And then I also use the pictures in the menu and point those out more frequently than I do to English speakers because, again, just another way to ensure they know exactly what they're getting, to avoid mistakes on my end, and to make them more comfortable in the whole situation. Although these situations can kind of feel awkward for me, with limited Spanish I do have, it's kind of awkward and it can be difficult to navigate the whole situation, but I do try my best to truly accommodate these people because they're coming in for a service, and again, I want them to have a great overall experience. And now that I've discussed the experience, I want to make some inferences. I think communication accommodation theory is so useful and practical in everyday life in various ways, whether it's a language barrier like I have at work sometimes, or hearing someone accommodate an elderly person by talking louder than normal because they think that they can't hear them. Also, I think that communication accommodation theory is really interesting because I don't think that most people actively think that they're accommodating people in different ways through communication as much as they do, which in all honesty is quite a bit. And through this experience, I learned how often I accommodate people in my daily life, whether it be at work or just different situations that I encounter. I do accommodate people more than I really realize. And emotions play a part in this situation because I get uncomfortable and worried and just a bunch of uncertainty that I'm not accommodating well or that I would offend someone. So emotions kind of do take a big part in this for me. And now that I've made a couple inferences, I'll talk about how these inferences can be transferred to another situation. That situation would be when people talk to babies. It's very common that people will talk to babies in baby talk to accommodate them for their lack of language skills and communication skills. And I've seen this in many times when people won't actually say words when speaking to babies, but they'll say goo goo gaga, that kind of stuff. Much like when we accommodate elderly people, it's almost like a natural reaction to accommodate babies because we are aware that they can't speak yet. But rather than accommodating with words and like different ways, we just do noises, kind of like the babies do. And I would use this knowledge of the theory and the inferences I've made to be more aware when I'm accommodating or of situations that it could come in handy. And I think this entire theory can be generalized to other parts of life because we're constantly communicating with others and adjusting our communication behaviors depending on what situation that we're given. And communication accommodation theory can be seen in so many different forms and so many different aspects of our lives every day. So it really can be generalized everywhere. So in conclusion, the information that the text provided about the communication accommodation theory informed us of how we can be more aware and conscious communicators, and how we can use this information to avoid situations that could be offensive and know how to properly deal with situations when accommodation is necessary. And now that we have this knowledge, we can actively, be respectful and act accordingly in these situations and be more educated on the subject, and we can be more accommodating when it is necessary. As stated by Tony Robbins, to effectively communicate, we must realize that we are all different in ways that we perceive the world, and this understanding as a guide to our communication with others.